I am severely dehydrated today, so we're going for my giant water bottle rather than the usual matcha. So let's just get into it. In my last video, I mentioned how real connection doesn't come from being around people. It's not crowded places, it's not total isolation, and it's definitely not fake friends. But here's the catch. Even wanting something deeper and more meaningful can feel isolating. And not just in relationships, but also in the way that you move about your life. When you stop trying to impress other people and you start trying to understand yourself, something inside of you just shifts to where you start craving friendships that are real rather than constant networking. You prioritize peace over productivity and you want rest rather than burnout. And then one day it just finally hits you. That feeling that you're walking a completely different path than everyone else. And not because you're better, but because most people aren't looking for meaning. They're looking for approval. They want the applause without ever understanding why they're even performing in the first place. They want the one night stand rebounds rather than true love. They want the closet full of Birkins as bragging rights rather than a job that they actually enjoy clocking in for. They want the Instagram reels of wild night outs rather than occasional dinner night in with friends, just talking about life. And when you stop chasing what everyone else is, people are definitely going to notice. They're either going to get curious or they might get defensive. And that's when you're going to hear things like, bro, it's not that deep. But I saw a line the other day that really stuck with me. Maybe it isn't that deep, but the ground is soft and I'm ready to dig. So if you're driving, curled up in bed, or just floating through your day, welcome in. This is the Full Spread Podcast, a space where we spill the tea, unpack life in all of its messiness, and try to plate it up in a way that actually makes sense. I'm Mabel, and today we're talking about something that might seem simple, but really isn't, and that is contentment. So if you've ever been called lazy or boring just because you weren't chasing the same highs as everyone else, this one's for you. Also, spoiler alert, that's not your problem to fix. And disclaimer, I'm not telling you any choice is right or wrong. I'm simply here to ask you whether your choice truly is yours, and if it brings you joy or just validation. And most importantly, can you let others be happy in their own lane, even if it doesn't look like yours? So when you stop searching for your own meaning, you start chasing someone else's, which is basically validation, right? If you don't even know what matters to you, then you start settling for what looks good to everyone else. You follow the path that everyone says is right, like the job that impresses people at brunch, or the major that makes the most amount of money, or the relationship that just looks good on paper. And when none of that starts to feel right, instead of pausing to figure out why, you speed up. Another promotion, another purchase, another goal. But emptiness doesn't come from not having enough. Emptiness comes from not knowing what enough means to you. We live in a time that confuses movement for meaning. And so when you do stop and choose contentment, when you opt out of the chase and still don't fall apart, that doesn't just confuse people. It triggers and threatens them because you're breaking down the whole entire narrative that they've built around their success. And when they don't know what to do with that type of discomfort, like, why would I be uncomfortable with someone who's quote unquote less successful than me? Then that starts to turn into jealousy. Now, we all think we know what jealousy is, right? It's about someone having more, like more success, more money, more fame, more followers. And movies love this storyline. Off the top of my head, movies like The Favorite, Mean Girls, Black Swan. But I don't think that's the full story. What if the real trigger is you being happy without ever having to show proof? You having enough without constantly having to hustle? Because it makes them question, was any of this even worth it? Did I even want this life? Or did I just want to win at life? And that's when it hit me. People don't hate you because you have more than them. People hate you because you have less and you're still happier than them. You ever notice how there are some people who are constantly asking about your life, specifically so that they can measure it against their own metrics? Like, you don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer. You don't want to aim for 6 figures. Oh, you don't want to be married and have kids by now. And you're just sitting there like, did I ever say I wanted that? You never said that you wanted their life, and yet somehow all they hear is the word rejection. They act as though your choices are a critique of theirs. And that's because your existence is a threat to all their assumptions. You're not winning, but that's precisely the point. You're not winning at their game because you realize there was no finish line that was worth crawling toward. You're not breaking the rules, you're just simply a reminder to them that they never had to follow those rules to begin with. And here's the other layer to this. Sometimes people aren't going to loudly announce their jealousy. Sometimes it reflects in things like calling you delusional or saying that you're unrealistic or insisting that you must be faking your happiness. But what they really mean is, how dare you not hate your life the way that I hate mine? But that's not your burden to carry. So what if you don't want 6 figures? Maybe you're just done trying to impress other people and you're finally just wanting to feel alive. And if that makes people uncomfortable, then let it, because you weren't here to please them anyways. You don't have to prove that your path is valid to anyone. It's not your responsibility to have to carry their burden, but it is your responsibility to not shrink yourself because of it. And here's where it gets bigger. Sometimes you can't change their mind because their discomfort isn't even about you. It runs so much deeper than that, because a lot of people base their sense of self and entire self-worth on what other people can see. Because like I said earlier, they don't know what they want. And I've seen this play out plenty in my life. Growing up, my relatives were obsessed with appearance. And unfortunately for them, I was never the skinny kid. And they made sure that I knew that any chance that they could get. I've heard everything from, don't wear that because it makes you look fat, or you look fatter in that photo, or stop feeding her. And thing is, it wasn't just critiquing me, it was also trash talking strangers. Like, oh, she's so ugly and yet she still doesn't want to get plastic surgery. And when I say things like, oh, that's not nice to say to someone, then suddenly I'm too sensitive. If I say, oh, I'm happy with the way I look, then I'm delusional. And if I opt out of that mindset entirely and I just go quiet, then it's offensive because I'm not participating in a performance that they need to justify their insecurities. And truth is, they don't want you to be free. They want you to feel familiar, because it's so much easier to exist in a system where everyone else is struggling alongside you. Because when you stop struggling, they have to ask themselves why they haven't too. When you stop striving, they can't see peace. All they see is laziness, and especially those who never felt safe enough to rest themselves. To them, happiness is something that you have to earn after you complete the type of work that society curates for you. Like, you have to wait until you lose the weight or wait for the perfect occasion to wear that dress that you've been dying to cut the tag off of, until you're richer, you're more available, you're more perfect, until your body, your house, everything else in your life all scream worthy. But what if today is enough? What if you can be happy today? What if the most radical thing you can do is wear that dress now, laugh now, enjoy now? And also, quick disclaimer, I'm not saying throw away your whole entire future just for a fleeting moment. This isn't about recklessness at all. It's about balance. It's about letting joy exist in the present without abandoning the future that you're working toward. But it's also about not depriving yourself of joy just to prove that you're working toward that future. And maybe they do have valid reasons to feel that pressure. And I know, because I have been in a space where I've tied my worth to what I output. but someone else's trauma still isn't your burden to carry. You weren't born to suffer just because someone else couldn't rest. And if there's anything you take away from this video, I want you to know that your contentment does not equate to complacency. You are not lazy just because you want a slow and meaningful morning. You're not throwing away your life potential just because you value intention. And actually, let's break that down. So, complacency is about staying in one place even though you've outgrown it, just because the discomfort of growth is scarier than the weight of staying stuck. Contentment, on the other hand, my mic just dropped. I literally dropped the mic. Contentment, on the other hand, isn't about not having desire. It's about choosing your desire from a point of peace rather than pressure. It's wanting whatever it is that you want without being swayed by your own anxiety or of other people telling you what it is that you should want. So pretty much bottom line is complacency is fear-driven, whereas contentment is pressure-free. If we want to bring in an imagery, then complacency is about sitting in a dimly lit, super cramped room just because it feels familiar, even though the air is stuffy and you know you have asthma. Whereas contentment is sitting in that same room, but getting up and opening up a window just because the sunlight hits your chair in the perfect way, or because the familiarity of the room feels like home and it makes you feel at peace. In my opinion, it takes extreme emotional discipline to choose peace when literally every single person around you is choosing chaos. And what is more powerful than being at peace on purpose? So I want you to say this with me, okay? I am slow, not because I'm behind. I am slow because I'm savoring. You are choosing not to measure your life based on how much you achieve or how fast you move or how many people clap for you. And like I said, what is more powerful than being at peace on purpose? And peace doesn't always have to scream loudly, right? Sometimes it's just sleeping in because your body needs the rest. And other days, it's about waking up at 5 a.m. to grind at the gym, not because you're trying to prove to people that you're disciplined or that you are healthy, but simply because waking up in the morning, the sunlight brightens your mood. Maybe it's going on your hot girl walk at the park, not because you're trying to get your daily 10,000 steps in, but just because the weather was nice today. And also, this isn't about doing less for the sake of it either. If your genuine goal is to hustle in order to financially support your family because you want that traditional family model, then that's beautiful. Yeah, work your ass off towards that. If you are an extrovert and you need the energy of going out with friends to fuel you, then yeah, go for it. This is simply about doing what matters to you, regardless of how it looks on the outside and what other people say about it. It's allowing your life to be meaningful to you, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. I want you to ask deeper questions about life, because life is full of surface answers and the pressure to conform. When you start building a life that you don't want to escape from, that's when other people's freedom isn't going to be a reminder of your own cage. And the deeper that you go, I guarantee you the fewer people will follow. And that's just because most people aren't ready to dig that deep. And honestly, that's why I even started this channel to begin with, because I was sick and tired of feeling weird for wanting more. I like asking deep questions about life that most people avoid. I like turning little life moments into metaphors. And I just got tired of faking being impressed by things that didn't matter to me. Most people only want small talk and to keep it safe. And I get it. Most people aren't going to be a trampoline that you can bounce ideas off of. They're just going to be cement. You say something meaningful and it's just going to thud against the pavement. There's no echo, there's no reflection, it's just silence. And so this is my space to feel less alone in that. maybe you have the same questions too. Maybe you want the answers that feel a little too deep for small talk. And not because we have all the answers, but because we're sick and tired of people telling us what the answer is. So, whether you're resting, resetting, or rebuilding, I hope that this is a reminder that you're not behind or ahead. You're just no longer lost in the race against everyone else. And maybe the next time that someone diminishes your joy, you remember that your contentment does not equal complacency. It's simply just clarity. And clarity doesn't have to mean that your life is perfect. It just means that you've stopped looking for perfection under other people's terms. You're just here to live, not to perform. And I think that's why true connection feels rare, because you have to stop performing to find it. But when you do stop, not everyone is going to clap for your peace. And I think that speaks volumes to the chaos that they've normalized than anything about you. If they fell away after you slowed down, then maybe that was the clarity that you needed. And maybe, just maybe, the freedom that they resent about you is the same type of freedom that they crave for themselves. And if you feel comfortable sharing, let me know in the comments what's one thing that you stopped chasing that brought you unexpected peace. And I think that's where I'll leave you for today. I'll see you in the next video. Bye, loves.